Okay, so it says it's recording. All right, we'll go ahead and do it.
Oh, yeah.
You see it, Casey? It's on recording on your end too? Normally, I get a person that says your meeting is being recorded, and there is a little thing that says it's being recorded up here. So if you're willing to roll with it, I am too, Casey. Let's try it.
Let's do
If
it.
not, I guess we're gonna take two another day. But anyway, how you doing? Casey Gregerson is our guest. My name is Jason Spees. This is This Week in Energy. We also put this out on The Crude Life. And what the heck, I might even have a brand or two because we're going to be talking about some real estate, career transition, as well as the Revive Summit coming up in Houston. With that, Casey, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about you, Jason?
Not too bad. We have a nice day up here in the Minnesota where I'm have my summer place. That's what I call it because I have a I have an off the grid pad up here next to the Pelican River where I like to do some fishing and paddle boarding and that kind of thing. And it's been like 80 degrees all week up here. How's the weather been in Houston?
Man, it's still pretty hot. We thought it was going to cool off. We had this like everyone said, oh, we're going to get this cold front. And then literally it was like 60 degrees like Saturday morning. And it like by noon, it was back up to 80 and 90. And it was like hot as Hades again. But I can't complain. I always say, like, I grew up in Wyoming in the cold. I will take 3 months of hot, like miserable hot, for like 9 months of good, decent weather versus I felt like it was always flipped in Wyoming and Montana. It was like, all right, I get my 3 months, or like Laramie. Laramie, Wyoming is the perfect example. You get like 3 or 4 months of good weather, and the rest of the year is just crap.
That's how it is here in North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota. Is you get three months of what they call God's country, God's weather, and then basically you sacrifice the rest of the time for those 3 months. And
Exactly.
Wyoming is very similar. Like
Yeah.
I've said this about Casper, down in Laramie and some other places. Like, man, I could stay here year round if it wasn't for the wind. In
Yes.
Wyoming, it's the wind that was the big issue for me, not so much anything else. But anyway, great places. But you're from Wyoming, right? Is that right?
Yep. Grew up in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Oh, Sheridan. Okay.
Yep.
I've have plans to retire in Thermopolis, of
There you
all
go.
places. I love that area up there in Thermopolis, the Owl Creek River and the mountains and a number of different things. But anyway, talking a little real estate, of course, because that's what Casey's doing now. You have a fascinating background, interesting story. Just give us a quick version of how you got to where you're at today.
Yes. Well, I'll fast forward. Today, we're flipping houses in Thermopolis of all those places.
Oh, are
I
you
got a
really?
house. Yeah, we got one we just listed, and we've done like 2 flips. No, I think 3 flips in the last couple of years in Thermopolis of all places.
No kidding.
Just did two of them in Grable, and Grable's what, like 30, 40 minutes away. So
That's yeah, you're not kidding
Right.
there. But so you haven't been in real estate your whole life, have you?
Nope. Yeah. So as mentioned, grew up in Sheridan. Actually went to undergrad in Montana. Some people don't know. I actually played football, played quarterback up in Montana for 5 years.
Montana or Montana State?
It was actually Rocky Mountain College. It was a
Okay.
smaller school up in Billings, right? So I went there,
Oh,
and then
familiar
had
with
a whopping degree of all these degrees of math and chemistry, double major and minor in physics and Spanish. So a bunch of paper, like I always like to say, but what was I going to do with that? So fortunately, I was fortunate enough to get accepted into University of Wyoming for petroleum engineering. So I did 2 years at UW from 2010 to 2012. And then I interned in the middle of that down in Houston with Shell, which was super fortunate to be able to land that internship job, and did a good job there and got hired full time. And yeah, moved down to Houston in 2012 and worked actually for Shell I ended up working there for 12 years. Yeah, a little over 12 years. And I left almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years ago next month. I left to do full-time real estate. But to give you the fast forward cliff notes, I like most other engineers, when I started for Shell, they send you out to the field so you can like run the rig or run the frac spread or run the workover rig at nighttime and get to learn the operations. And then usually after that, you go back to the office and you're the guy on call all the time and you work your way up the corporate ladder. But what I saw was, wait, I could just stay out here in the field and I could keep making the same amount of money, and I could work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and have paid time off. I'm like, I'm going to keep doing this. And that's exactly what I did for the 12 years. I mean, off and on, bounced around from like Alberta, Canada to West Texas, down to the Gulf of Mexico. But the whole time I was building my real estate. So we'll call it my portfolio empire, whatever you want to call it. But I was learning how to find rental properties, learning how to find fix and flips, building my portfolio, and eventually I got it big enough that I could leave Shell a couple of years ago and do it full time.
Well, I think that's really the moral of the story here is that you can do and now they're called side hustles, or they used to be called side hustles, I should
Mm-hmm.
say. And, when I was probably your age, that Robert Kiyosaki book was coming out, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the theories there, it has to do with cash flow, and it has to do with leveraging assets. And essentially you are somewhat creating your own bubble, but the idea is that there's so many bubbles that they all take care of each other in a number of different things. And it's kind of the time that really becomes the main part of this, is that you need time for a lot of these things to really work. And so when you have a steady income, or if you're a trust fund baby, in some cases, that's still a steady income. These are
Yep.
the types of things that you can do. And, we mentioned at least a colleague of mine, somebody I'd like to introduce you to, who was in the oil and gas industry, was part of a merger buyout, took that, leveraged into a career he's been doing now for 6-7 years very successfully. He's grown every year, that type of thing. And your path seems very similar to where, all right, well, you're with Shell, you're in the oil and gas world. It created opportunities for you that were never be available if you worked at McDonald's or if you worked at Walmart. No offense, Walmart, no offense, McDonald's, but the way that the oil and gas industry is set up, it is set up so it does give you some financial freedom to do some things. And it understands that, hey, an employee's got a shelf life, especially on that rig. We got to make sure he's taken care of before and after and during. And so that's kind of one of the things I like about the industry. Talk to me a little bit about not only but your transition, but one of the reasons why you're still working with oil and gas professionals. Primarily that's your customer, isn't it? Mostly people in the oil and gas field, because the industry is so big, it can kind of feed a family of four. Is that the idea right now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I loved how you summarized that, Jason. And like to kind of go a little bit of full circle, then I'll come back to
Yeah.
what you asked was you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I read that book in 2014, 15. I'll never forget it. I'm up working in Canada up in Alberta, like Fox Creek area. If anybody's up there in the oil fields, shout out to Fox Vegas. So I'm driving out to the rigs, right? I'm like, one day I got out, I'll never forget it. I flew into Calgary, was in the rental car driving up to the rig, and that's like, all right, I'm going to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I'd been told about the book by someone else on the rig. I'm like, I'm going to read it. So I started it. And that's like, again, just like so many people, that's when it started to plant the seed of like, because I had one rental property at that point. I bought actually bought it when I was going to college. It was a house hack, which a lot of people still call house hacks, right? I bought the property and it had 4 bedrooms, and I rented out the other 3 bedrooms to my roommates, and I covered my mortgage, and I was just happy, right? So I had kept that property, but I hadn't, like, I understood that I made a little bit of money each month, and I knew it was kind of cool every time it was tax time, I was able to get some pretty cool write-offs. But that was really all I knew about what I was doing. I didn't realize I had bought this asset that was appreciating. I was using leverage. I was using good leverage to grow, like you said. But I read that book, and all of a sudden all these dots start connecting, right? And then that's just what supercharged me to start reading more, listening to podcasts, listening to Bigger Pockets, reading every real estate or business sales book I could find. And then I just sort of started self-training, right? And then as I did this, I built out my different companies, right? I built out my property management because I was doing it myself, and I just scaled it with virtual assistants. I then went and joined a mastermind to learn how to find off-market properties. Like, how do I go find deals and not have to go pay full price on the market, right? How do I go direct to seller? That was kind of number 2. And the third big one was, how do I do construction now in-house, and how do I, because that came out of necessity, because I had so many projects going, and you're dependent upon GCs that you couldn't always depend upon their schedule, their scopes, and just going through enough headaches. I'm like, I need to bring that in-house and build that, right? So I built those 3 different companies up. And then the final one, and then I'm going to come back to your question, I promise. But the final one was raising capital, right? It was like, okay, now that I can find the deal, I can fix it up with my crews, and I can rent it out that works really good. But to your point, you got to have a big war chest. All right. You got to have a lot of capital to take down all these properties, right? Especially if you're putting 25% down every time. Your money, you can use up your money real fast. Okay. So I was like, I need to raise more money. I need to scale this, right? So that's where it kind of goes full circle is I realized I'm having all these conversations on the rig, right? So like, let's rewind 7 years ago, right? I'm on a frac spread and or how about this? A wireline van. Anybody in wireline has been on a wireline van when you're just hitting there, or the frac van, and you're just sitting in there with some downtime waiting for the wireline to go down, or you're waiting for the pump and the chemicals to go all the way down to the ground. You're just sitting there hanging out with the guys, right? And you start talking about what you're doing. And then I have this realization of like, well, not everybody's doing this. These guys actually go home and they enjoy their off days and they go water skiing or whatever they do, right? Hunting. And I'm going back and I'm building my real estate portfolio. I'm hustling, right? But I realize they're not doing that, but at the same time, they're super interested and they're making good money out there and they're not sure what to do with it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like these guys don't want to do what I'm doing, right? But I need them to grow and scale. So that's when I started creating these awesome partnerships, these awesome lending relationships, these awesome partnerships, many different ways I was working with these other oil and gas professionals to where they could use their capital in my deals and we could all win, right? And it was such a perfect match. And to this day, it's what I try to do more and more because I understand how these guys think. I understand like how they're like a lot of the engineers. So that was just a field personnel, right? The field guys, they just needed to deploy money. They don't have the time. Well, it's the same thing in the office, right? The engineers in the office, they're busy, right? They're on call. They've got families. Like they've got some extra money to deploy, but they don't have the time to go do what I did, right? So working with those guys was also a good match. And then the reason I thought of that was it was just how they think, right? I'm an analytical brain. I can connect with an engineer. I am by nature, by degree, I am one, right? But I knew how they thought and how they would look at a deal. And I knew how to present here's what I'm doing. Here are the risks, right? Here's how we mitigate the risk. And that way I could just connect with them and share the deal and they could get comfortable. And that's just created a lot of great relationships over the years.
One of the things I've noticed that's changed in the industry, I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody who's 20 years older than me. And keep in mind, our background is media. I've been in the media since I was 10 years old. And so I'm very attuned to how much the media has changed and the newspaper industry has gone through their paradigm shift. The broadcasting world is going through theirs right now as the podcasts are taking over. And the oil and gas industry is just in the final stages of their paradigm shift. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive. Is it a compliance department of carbon sequestration, or are we going to take these regulations on head on? So they're trying to figure out their end game, but it's coming to a fruition, their paradigm shift, if you will. So when I take a look at all the things that have changed, the one thing that I will say that stands out more than anything when it comes to investing is relationships and trust. And so when you're talking about real estate, what you said is so true that this is not, $500 entry level stuff. Sometimes this is thousands and thousands of dollars just to get a seat at the table. And so when somebody's going to give their money away, they want to make sure that the person behind that is well trusted. And when you come from the oil and gas industry, it's almost like you come from the military, or you come from that thin blue line, or you come from, I suppose, human resources professionals have their own guild and cult and following too. But there's a certain level of trust there that is carried through. And I do want to ask you about that because, when you're sitting around, and by the way, hotshot drivers would be another good one of people who are sitting around for 6 hours waiting for their turn in line to where you can build up a relationship with them. So my point is whether you're a farmer or a hotshot driver, you can build relationships. Now, talk to me about that, but then also, let's say there's somebody watching who's never seen you before, but maybe they're in the oil and gas industry, so that trust factor's there right now. How do you get people to invest in that first step? Because that's the hardest part. That is the hard. It's like they say, making the first million is the hardest. Making the second is much more easier than the first. So talk to me about getting that first investor by, I don't know if it's, showing this trust or parlaying the trust, or it's all based on trust, Casey. It's all based on trust, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And man, Jason, it's such a good question. And I've been tweaking and tinkering at that for years, right? How to move that trust curve, right? Like when you know somebody, you've worked with them, like the guys I worked with on the rig, they knew what I was all about, right? They got to know me, they got to see, like, we connected with our families, just all right. We had a strong connection, but like, how do you get that same connection with someone else? And I've just found probably the best way to answer your question with a total stranger is to help educate them, right? And that's why my mission, I set this up about a year ago, was to help 100 families achieve financial freedom, right? And a big part of these families I focus on are oil and gas professionals, right? And I get it, these people, they're doing well, right? They have enough to support their family. But my biggest thing is I want to give them what I was able to create, where I was able to choose my family, because I haven't gone into this story. And if you guys, I can share another link with you guys a little bit more about like my background and why I left my W-2. At the end of the day, it was about my family. I wanted to be able to choose family first. And that in real estate and what I was going for gave me that opportunity. So what's really developed as my passion is, how do I help other people at least give them that opportunity to make that choice, right? Whether they need to take it now or they need to do it down the road, or they just want to have the security to where at any point I could tell my boss, I'm out because I want to go to my family, or I want to put this priority first, they can do it, right? So real estate has been what's created that for me, and I want to create it for other people. So that's why I set that goal of helping 100 families do that. So to answer your question.
Let's pause there for just 1 second, because I want to just take a second and point out how important that is for people, because why you go into something is very important. And I'm going to give a marriage, just to give people an idea of what I'm talking about with marriage vows. When I was, I'm ordained as well, so I do some counseling and that sort of thing. And one of the questions when somebody's going through divorce issues, I'll ask them, why did you get together in the first place? And then they'll say why they did. And I'll ask, why did you move in together? And I'll tell you what, 99% of them say it made financial sense. I said, well, there's your issue with your marriage right there. Your marriage is no longer financial sense. And so and I'll tell you, Casey, that's the root of every problem. Every single one of their problems, because their intention to come together as a family was for financial reasons. And so they had to like rewire their brain to understand what family first meant, to go off of your marketing slogan of family first, because there are so many families out there that they want to control 100% of their time and be available for their family. That doesn't mean their family is always going to be chosen first, but the important parts are going to. The kid's soccer game.
Yeah.
If there's a quick medical emergency, they don't want to have to go to 4 hours of HR to sign up a bunch of different disclaimers before they can run to the emergency room. So just to give you an idea, with those two things, I just wanted to accentuate what you were talking about, because to me, that is such an important part that people need to understand. Okay, why are you doing the side hustle? Is it because you just want to go to Vegas every month? Okay, well, that's cool. But do you want it to do it because you eventually want that financial freedom for your family or for yourself? But for you, you're doing it for families. And I can understand and appreciate that, because guess what? There's enough consumers out there that want financial freedom for their families, so you can make a living doing it. You don't have to go get every customer. That's cool. So anyway, I just wanted to accentuate that, because I do think that is such an important part of this whole deal, that what is the intention of why you are doing something. And I just wanted to juxtapose marriage, because most people can understand that. Go ahead. Yes. So continue on with your deal.
Yeah. Well, I'll add two to it, or a second component is, because you asked like, how would somebody who's never met you, right? Like, I would just say, if you guys are if you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or something, go connect with me there, because I've just learned that over the years, is just sharing what I'm doing with my family, share what's important, because it's just, I just want to be like super genuine in what I'm really about. And what I'm all about is being able to be there for my kids, being able to coach my kids' games. Like, that's why I left my job, was to do that. So that's one way for like, to kind of build a relationship, knowing that we can't all go to, we can't all be on meetings all day and on calls all day. We're all busy. Like that's a great way that I connect with people. But the second one where I was going to go to, Jason, is my summit, right? So we do a 2-day summit in Houston every 3 months, and we did one in July, and we're doing another one in October. And I found, so I think the best way of answering your question is, I want to at least share with these people enough information so they understand what they're investing in, right? Like I want to give them, I know they're not going to, most people aren't going to go do what I did and go pay for all these masterminds and do all this side hustle and go learn it all the hard way, right? Learn all the hard lessons. Not most people don't want to do that. And either A, they don't want to do it now, or they're at a stage in life where that doesn't make sense. But at the same time, you said it earlier, right? If they're investing all this money, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they work so hard to earn, like they got to understand what they're investing in. And people don't invest in what they don't understand. So my 2-day workshop, as we go in and I show you, like, for example, in October, we're going to be talking about like all the ways that you can invest without necessarily having to have a big pile of cash, right? How to use your 401k. How do you borrow against your stock portfolio? How could you use your credit, right? All these different strategies, self-directed IRAs. There's so many different tactics where you could leverage that to go grow in real estate without having to use cash, right? So that's the biggest focus in October, is like, I want to show these people the tools to do that. But at the end of the day, Jason, I just want to teach them the basics. Like I love teaching and I love coaching, and I really self-identified and having self-realization over the last couple of years. I realized in building all the companies, I really loved, and that was a lot of fun. But what I really realized is I love getting on a call and helping someone. I love going to my summit and having an audience of people who like are just dying to like have this information so they can educate themselves and take action, right? Or or just, I mentioned getting on a call, being in front of people, or just sitting down and having a beer with somebody and be like, hey, here, I've learned all this stuff. If I can help you go implement it, I don't know, that stuff lights me up.
So who, your summit, I wanted to, what the website for the summit? That was the question I wanted to ask you. What's the website for the summit?
Yeah, easy. If you just, we'll share in the notes, but if you're just writing it down, it's caseygregerson.com/events, and you'll see it's the main feature.
Just caseygregerson.com and then click on the events link. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get it.
Or you'll scroll through and see all the information and that sort of thing. We'll have the links available too, but I just wanted to do that. So I got a email today. I forget which one of the majors is laying off 2,000 employees. Ooh. And yeah, that's pretty serious. Layoffs are part of the boom and bust cycle that happens with the economy. Oil and gas seems to get probably the most press on boom and bust cycles because it impacts communities. It doesn't just impact industries, it impacts communities. And as terrible as bad news is, there's always good news that comes out of it for someone. And if you're part of the bad news, eventually you got to rise out of the ashes and become the phoenix and the creator that we were meant to be. I believe as humans, we're meant to create. And there's a yin and yang out there, and there's a people that are meant to destroy. I get it. Create, destroy. I think in the Hindu religion, there's even someone in the third. There's always three. Vishnu, maybe. Anyway, sorry, I digress here. But how about if you're getting laid off? Because there's always a percentage of people that they do get a nice severance check, and they might not just want to put it in the bank. Some people use it to go back to school. Some people use it to go, maybe pay 30 grand and try a Chick-fil-A franchise or whatever the case might be. A lot of different things can happen. I remember Brian Lash, the founder of Target Logistics, the largest mobile home community, or I guess man camps they were called. I forget what they're called now, mobile camps or something like that. He was one of my first year interviews, and he was talking about just the growth of the industry, about, a person in their 20s can, make a couple $100,000 a year for 5-6 years and leave, start a Subway franchise and go have a perfect life if they want, type of a thing, and he was just kind of laying it out there. The one thing I want to say about the oil and gas industry, because a lot of times you do get severance checks or you do get paid well, or you do at least get a notification ahead of time, or you get hired on by someone else pretty quick too. Talk to me about that a little bit, the transitional worker, because there's a lot of different kinds, but that's a good opportunity for somebody leaving the industry because number one, sometimes they get a bulk of cash. They do get a little extra cash. Number two, and this is the part that opportunity arises when other people do not have opportunity. In some of those bust areas, property becomes pretty cheap, Casey. So when people are getting laid off in a certain area, it's almost like an indicator to another market that, oh, we could have a sale on some property here pretty quick because somebody's got to unload it because it's no longer worth anything because everybody's gone. Talk to me a little bit about that because again, you got to navigate some pretty tough waters because you're dealing with a lot of emotion when communities are getting laid off and maybe the person that just left there, now they're buying the property that they just left from. But hey, that's a good news too. That's a good story too. So without, let's just tackle it from a sterile point of view without, people listening. We're not trying to be insensitive in any way here. So go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I resonate with this big time, Jason. Like, this is the story I tell all the time too. Like at Shell, we laid off like 10% for I swear it was like 6 straight years. One year during COVID, when oil went to negative, our organization, they laid off 40% of one of Shell's businesses that I was a part of. Like 40% of us lost our job. We had to either go take a severance or go apply for a new job. I was fortunate enough that I was able to keep mine and apply for a new job within Shell. But I'll never forget this conversation that I'm going to point behind me, right? Just down behind me, I had a rental property and I invited one of my higher up bosses. And this guy I really looked up to. He'd been a mentor of mine and I thought really highly of him. And it was really a light bulb moment for me because I'm sitting there talking to him about my rental property and we're talking about the layoffs. And he's just like, Casey, man, if I get laid off, and no one's hiring, what am I going to do? I could see the stress in his eyes and hear it in his voice. Right. And I'm telling him man, if I get laid off, I'm just going to keep this thing running and I'm going to take the severance. I'm going to reinvest it. And I got a plan and I got an off ramp, right? I'm ready to take my off ramp. If my number gets called, I got my off ramp, right? But he didn't have his. So that's another reason back to the financial freedom is just, I want to help. So let's say right now we're being, preventative, right? Then we'll talk prescriptive. So if we're being preventative, that's the one thing I want people to take action on now is while you're still collecting that check and doing well, start putting that money to good use, start diversifying, right? Do what a lot of other people have done and what I did and create an off-ramp, right? So that's kind of step one. Now let's say that you're laid off and we're being more sort of prescriptive. At that point, you've got a lot of options, right? And fortunately, a lot of times you're going to get a severance. So that might have to be your runway. If you have not created the runway, well, at least you got a severance. Now you got some runway. So if you're a risk taker like me and you're like, hey, you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to go all in. Let's burn the ships and I'm going to go figure this entrepreneurial thing out or whatever you want. I would run with it. And I always like to say, if you got 6 months of pay, be like, all right, well, you got 6 months to go figure this thing out. And if you can do it, heck yeah, go bet on yourself. Right. So that's kind of one tactic if you really want to go all in. The other tactic is, you go find another job, right? Which again, typically these people, I always like to say this too, right? Even if you leave or you left your job, if you're good at what you do, you're going to be able to find something else, right? So go find something if you need that sort of security and then keep that severance to go reinvest it. Like you said, maybe you go back and reinvest in the market that's now depressed because there was a bunch of layoffs. That's a phenomenal idea, right? Another idea is, and honestly, what I would advise people is go educate yourself first or go find a partner. Go find somebody who's been in the trenches. Because what I would hate for somebody to do is they go through that layoff and then they go out and kind of do what I did, but at least I had my W-2 to save me, right? And because you're going to make mistakes in real estate. In any new thing, you're going to make mistakes. And I don't know, one of my favorite books ever, Jason, is I think it's called The Road Less Stupid, right? It's don't make all the stupid mistakes. Go partner with somebody, go align with somebody who's already done it, so you don't have to make the expensive mistakes. Because I'm telling you, I've lived a lot of that. And luckily, I had my W-2 to support me so I could keep bouncing back after making stupid mistakes. I would go partner with somebody. And that, I mean, if I'm giving one person one advice and they took a severance, that's what I would say is go find a partner or go find somebody, a mentor, somebody to help guide you and attack it that way.
And I want to explain why that's very important for people. And this happens in the media too. I can't tell you how many phone calls and emails I got from people when the podcast revolution took off, because at that time we had My Pillow as one of our sponsors. Our podcast was so big. Right now we have Paramount because for one, My Pillow went through their deal, and at that point I was like, he's a little too political for a pillow, and we're trying to be non-political. Well, because the oil and gas industry is political enough, and we're trying to be non-political. Okay, that's why we're on all these radio stations, is because we bring a non-political approach, and that we're FCC compliant and a number of different things, and we follow those rules because that reaches the masses. We don't stay in a small little silo. We want to reach the masses, and so I'm sorry, I was getting back to your point here for just a second on. I would get all these people calling, and I was down in, I think it was in Edmond, Oklahoma, right outside of Oklahoma City, one of the suburbs. And I'm in this office, and this guy was asking me all these podcast questions, and he was doing his podcast, and he showed me this 4-tiered utility cart, and it was stock full of electronics. And he calls that his wall of shame because it was over $15,000 in electronic equipment. And he told me a half-hour conversation saved him all that money right there. That's the type of thing we're talking about here, folks, is that whether it's the media, real estate, or oil and gas, mistakes are expensive. And when an expensive mistake happens and you're not expecting it, boy, you're in fight or flight mode and you're not making the best decisions. So it doesn't even matter if you can afford it. Your mind just isn't there. And so you're trying to figure out the best way to clog the dam instead of making things worse. For the gentleman in Oklahoma, it was worse and worse and worse until he reached out to me. And then I just, within a half an hour, showed him the correct way of doing it. Casey, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Where we're talking about surrounding yourself with people that understand what they're doing so they can be preventative for that one mistake that might just take you out. It could just take you and mentally take you out to where all of a sudden now you're defeated because you got a $10,000, some kind of heating, cooling issue that needs to be rectified, and you only got $12,000, and you don't like to go below 5. And I'm just throwing out some numbers there. So talk to me a little bit about that, because that's got to be the biggest fear for people, is that when they now have invested so much money, they feel like they can't pull out. Actually, that's how Amazon was created. All the investors invested so much money that if they pulled out, it would have cost them money. So they had to lose more money and just go after the end goal, and it worked out for them. But anyway, talk to me a little bit about that, about the reason of having that kind of, if not consulting, it's wisdom. It's wisdom at the end of the day. That's all it is. It's just wisdom, because you can see the future and they can't.
Yeah, I think, Jason, it's like, and you don't realize it. Again, I don't know, just because maybe I always just learn from so many people, and I've gotten more confidence over the years that, hey, I've actually done something and done other things that I have all this knowledge that I can help people with. Right. And I think I probably realized it the most at one of our recent summits when I was able to be up there on stage and help these different people. And it's just the fact that, like I mentioned, I was working for 10 years in oil and gas, but on those 2 weeks off, I was buying properties. I was learning it. Like, one of the best, most rapid ways I learned was it was like supercharging my learning curve. During my 2 weeks on, we'd be everyone who drives a hot shot, or if you're in a frac van or you're driving between locations, there's a lot of what we call in the oil field windshield time, right? You're just driving, you got that windshield time. So what I'm doing is I'm listening to these podcasts, listening to these books. I'm like educating myself. And literally, as soon as I get on my off days, and I mean, even in my off hours, I'm planning out my next job So I'm like learning it and then I'm executing it on the 2 days off, 2 weeks off. Right. So that was kind of my education for several years was learn it, apply it, learn it, apply it, and just iterate, right? Go make a stupid mistake, learn from it, don't do it again. Right. And just this constant iteration. And then the other thing was like just learning from other people, right? Joining other masterminds. Like I remember the first mastermind I joined, it was $11,000 to join. I'm like, holy cow. Like my mindset at the time was like, that is ridiculous. Why would I ever pay that much? Like this is a scam or something like, but I realized they taught me how to find properties off market and how to learn how to wholesale, how to learn how to do direct mail, how to build out all these systems. And I'm like, I had to literally close like one deal to pay for that course. And then I got to surround myself with people who are thinking how I needed to think. Like that was the biggest value was just I was surrounding myself with the right people. So I started investing a lot more money to do this, to be around the right people. And then I would say the third thing was I started like, this is another kind of cool one that I always recommend for people. And it's led to so much education for me. It's called take your banker or go to lunch with a banker, right? Go to lunch with a lender, right? Because in real estate, if you really want to grow, you've got to learn how financing work. You got to learn how the banks work. You got to learn how they think, right? And if you go find a personable banker, well, A, those guys are sales guys too. Like they want your business and they'll answer questions for you. And I've done that for years. I still do that to this day. Like anytime I can meet a new lender, I want to go meet with them. I want to go have a beer. I want to go grab lunch. I want to go grab coffee, right? And I want to pick their brain and I want to learn from them because I've done that consistently for so many years, now I can think like a banker thinks. And now back to your original point, like now when people ask me for advice or they're like, what should I do here? I just know like I can draw back on all that information I've learned, right? They don't teach you, unfortunately, whatever you want to say about our current schools and public systems, they don't teach you this in school. So you got to go out and learn it somehow. And I've just learned it from the professionals, right? And let them, they're happy to share it with you.
What I think is really fun, you mentioned the mastermind and getting around people of a like mind. That is a big part. I was going to mention this before when you were talking about getting around like-minded people, was that talking shop is such an important thing to where it can exercise your mind in an area where you want to be. And that's really important because when you're talking with someone who's not from your shop, your industry, it's not the same because they're poking and prodding in ways that you don't want right now. You want to move ahead. You don't want to stay put. You don't want to move backwards. If you move backwards, you want to move ahead 2 spots. So that's little subtleties about things. And so that's one of the reasons why, again, going to the $11,000, which is absolutely brilliant by the mastermind, because what they're doing is what you had to do, go through the emotional investment, whether you can do it or not. Financially, you could because you did it. Whether you could afford it or not is a whole different story because you found the money. It's a whole different deal. When you emotionally invest into something, that's when you achieve victory. And that's one of the things that I like what you're trying to do with this Revive Summit. I don't know what it costs. I do know it's a 2-day commitment. And a 2-day commitment from somebody in today's 15-second instant oatmeal world we live in, that's a commitment, man. 2 days. Talk to me a little bit about this summit and what they get back and what they got to put in and all these different things, because this sounds like something where somebody should go to who has that entrepreneurial mind, or they have that family first mind and they want to know how to get there. Maybe they're not an entrepreneur, but they can surround themselves with entrepreneur and invest with those entrepreneurs. I don't know if that's a market of yours, Casey, but it should be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was talking with, he's like a mindset and speaking and business coach of mine. And we were just having a conversation the other day about the summit. Right. And cause I told him, I'm like, his name's Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, like if I could just get this summit full of oil and gas professionals that are ready to take some action. And as I mentioned earlier, like they want to pour fire on their fuel, right? Knowing that they've got, like, I think there's so many people, I guarantee this, so many, even your listeners too, Jason, there's so many people that have assets or leverage or have these little things in these little tools in their tool chest that they could be leveraging in real estate that they don't even know, right? So it's like one of my biggest focus in October for people who come down is like, I want to like pull back the curtain and show you guys what you could do. Like a perfect example is my partner. We bought a 70, it was 72 units. We own 66 of the 72 now. This big apartment complex in Casper, Wyoming, which you know well, right? So it's in Casper. My partner, we were able to use a line of credit on the money he had in the stock portfolio, right? He'd been making money, doing well, right? Like a lot of other professionals and putting money into the stock market. And maybe even his company was matching some of the stuff in the stock market, right? But he had created a good portfolio there. Literally, he was able to use the cash, or he was able to use a line of credit off his existing assets, right? Leave his money in the stock market, take that line of credit and work with me. And we went and bought this 72 unit apartment, which now 2 years later, we bought it, we fixed it up, we're refinancing and we're getting all that money back. So now he goes and pays off that line of credit. All right. We've been paying interest on it. And now we've created, we'll see the exact math once we get to refinance, but I'm going to guess we're each going to make about $20,000 a month in passive cash flow from this asset that literally so many people don't even realize that they could go leave their money in the stock market, borrow against it, go buy a good asset, and then do this whole cyclical process where we bought it, fixed it up, refinanced, paid it back. And now we've created another asset, right? Now he's making $20,000 a month. So this is just a good example of like these little tactics, these little strategies that if you come down here, we're going to, again, pull back the curtain so you see all these opportunities. And again, so you're going to learn them, but then you're going to be around, like you said, Jason, you're going to be around a bunch of other like-minded people that are in the same boat as you. I'm sure they're going to be busy. They got the same hurdles we all do every day, right? We all probably have families. We all have a lot of demands. We all have busy schedules. We're all trying to keep up with it, but we're all, I think at least the people that I want to be at this Revive Summit, I think we all have this in common. We all want better for our families and we all want to take action and we all have a limited amount of time. So why not get around the right people so you can make it happen?
All right. So in closing here, I'm going to share a little story and then transition into your summit to give for information for people so they can reach out and everything, because the story I'm going to have is from a person from the advertising and marketing world. And about 10 years ago, he started seeing the handwriting on the wall that, boy, this is becoming a lot of nonprofits are now entering the advertising world through NGOs. And there's a lot of other area influencers are coming in now. Everybody is a advertising agency that has a cell phone. And so he was just kind of seeing, some of the handwriting on the wall, and he started his exit strategy because he was a partner in this advertising marketing firm. And he went to one of these summits, one of these real estate summits. And he mapped out a 2-year exit strategy, 2 years from his company, his that he was a third partner in. Okay, there was 3 of them. He was a third partner in. And it took him 2 years. And he's still now, was it 7 years later, whatever it is, he still has not got a new job. He is still making money off of his passive income from the rental properties and the flipped properties and the real estate side hustle he did for 2 years. Well, he exited out of a company he was an owner in, all because of a real estate summit like the one you're doing. Number one, it gave him the motivation he needed to go over the top. He was already thinking about it. Number two, it surrounded him with like-minded people so that it kept the motivation going afterwards. People he could text, people he could reach out to when he was having down days or doubts. And number three, it has a centralized person like yourself that he could reach out to if needed for one-on-one, whatever a case might be. And I didn't get into those details and that type of thing. But just to let anybody out there, whether you're in the oil and gas industry or any other industry, he did it in the advertising marketing industry. And that's incredible because you don't make the kind of money you make like you do in oil and gas. And so he did it in 2 years. He was a partner that was tied in financially with all of his records and wife and the whole deal to this company. And in 2 years, he was able to create his own financial freedom, his own life. And now he He hasn't missed an NDSU Bison game or a national championship. He goes down to the Kansas City Royals when they're in the playoffs. I mean, he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. He goes down to Dallas now. And he lives up here in the Midwest. So Casey, that's the setup for people that listen. This is not a paid advertisement for Casey. This is what this is this is to tell people out there, if you set your mind to something and you surround yourself with the right people, you can do it. And it might take a little time, but what else you got to do? So talk to me about the Revive Summit. It's 2 days. What should people expect? It's every 3 months. So give yourself a little bit of a commercial.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Jason. And yeah, I love to share that story. I resonate so much with that, right? Because I get it. It's the life I get to live now, right? I love traveling to games. I love being able to be there with my kids, take my kids to the games, take them with me for business, and just ultimately be there for their games too. But yeah, so 2-day summit. So October 23rd through the 25th, right? It's a Thursday through a Saturday. We do that because, again, I know a lot of you guys are working professionals. Thursday is just a kind of a networking night if you guys can make it. If you can't make it till Friday, totally get it. And that's why I did it. I know a lot of oil and gas folks and any industry folks, typically if they can get a day, if they got a swing day, they can make it Friday. So definitely would want you guys to be there Friday and Saturday. If you're local, I mean, and you could, if somebody came to me and they said, I can only make Saturday, I would say still show up because you're still going to get value. But anyway, so Friday is going to be a speaker heavy day where I've got all these different people coming in. So I'll just highlight the quick ones. I'm going to have somebody come in and talking about using your credit, using 0% interest credit cards, which has been an awesome hack for me to grow and buy assets. We're going to have a guy come in and talk about using HELOCs on properties. We're going to talk about using your 401k, right, or self-directed IRAs. We're going to have another lender that's talking about how to go out and use your stock portfolio, right, and borrow against that. It's going to be all kind of focused on these different ways to use, different ways to, like I say, you don't have to have a big pile of cash to go in real estate. So day one, we're just going to talk about all these different strategies, right, and go from there. Okay, so day two now is more on execution. So one thing I didn't tell you earlier, Jason, is our first summit, we focused that all around a 10-year vision. So we spent a lot of that time with different speakers to help everyone get their 10-year vision. And I've got this really cool, we didn't even get to talk to AI today, but AI helps build out your 10-year vision. So I basically am leveraging AI and leveraging like the inspiration of these speakers and being around the right people. And you take all those inputs and you feed it into this AI, this ChatGPT, and it helps you get clarity on your 10-year vision. Because I know if you're like me and like a lot of other people, thinking about 10 years down the road it's not the easiest exercise, right? Even me, who feel like I'm a visionary, I even struggle. So this ChatGPT helps prompt you and get you to think about this so you could set that 10-year goal, all right? So the reason I'm saying this is everyone who came to my first summit, we set our 10-year vision, and then we planned out the next 90 days of what we needed to do to go start pushing the direction of that 10-year vision, okay? So now, if you're coming to this second one and you weren't at the first, don't worry. I've got a little additional like Zoom that I'm going to do with you guys specifically so we can build out your 10-year vision, because I want you to come in there ready with that 10-year vision, or at least a start on it. Because then now we get to day two. So remember, day one, we gave you all these cool strategies, all these cool tools, all these new tools in your tool belt, right? So now day two, we're going to get into the implementation, all right? Now you got your 10-year vision, you've got all these ideas. Now, how do you start to plan out your next 90 days, right? And again, we use this AI and these different, I'm really just using the AI as a place to start to store all your ideas, all your inputs, all your goals, put it into one place, and then you could keep that over the next 90 days so you can go execute. So again, day two, execution. How do we actually go plan out your next 90 days to get everybody on this path to their 10-year goal and ultimately their financial freedom?
October 23rd through the 25th is what I have down in my notes. Is that correct?
You got it. Houston, Texas. I should have mentioned.
Houston, Texas. Okay. And
let me mention this one too, Jason. If you guys can't make it to Houston, we are planning one for up north, up in Wyoming. A lot of my
Oh,
portfolio. Almost all of my portfolio is Wyoming and Montana. So we're planning one in 2026 that'll be up near like kind of Southwest Wyoming, Park City area.
Southwest Wyoming. Really? Over in the Southwest area?
Yeah. Well, I
That's
mean,
on the
that's
opposite side of Laramie.
it is. We've actually I own 165 units in Evanston, Wyoming now. And I
Okay.
got a lot of stuff going in Southwest Wyoming. And you're literally Evanston. Most people don't know this, but Evanston's right on the border. You're like 45, 50 minutes from Park City. So we figured, hey, everybody loves Park City in the
You're talking
wintertime. Why
Utah,
not?
right? Park City,
Yeah.
Utah? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So everybody loves being there. Let's get out of Houston and let's go.
is that where the film festival is, Park City?
Oh, I believe there is.
I mean, Park City's like world renowned for some reason, and I think it might
It's
be a
this,
film festival, but there's
yeah.
skiing and other things too. But when you said Park City, I knew Utah. So I mean, it's where and you're close to Colorado too, in the
Yeah.
southwest part too. Is that directly below like Grand Junction area? Is that where we're
You'd
talking?
be a ways, yeah. You'd still be a ways from Grand Junction.
Okay.
But yeah, you're still touching Colorado. It's just really nice. Like that part of the area of Wyoming and why we invest there is it's really growing because
Hmm.
Park City, I mean, you're still only an hour from Salt Lake City, right?
Well,
So
if you're in the
it's all
oil
there.
and gas industry, you know that industry very well. That the it's so funny about Wyoming because it's literally like one of the most gorgeous states, and they have national parks to prove it. But if you drive on the interstate, it is the most boring interstate drive in the entire United States. It takes you to all the areas of Wyoming that are just like small, rocky, not even really mountainous areas. And so
Yeah.
and then you get over to Rock City. Is it Rock City over in the western part?
Rock Springs.
Rock
And
Springs.
then, yeah.
Yeah. And over in that area, Rollins and et cetera, where you can get some very good priced land because it's not very livable.
Yeah.
But as more commerce gets out there, it is becoming livable. But on the flip side, you got a lot of good opportunity to rent out oil field uh, um, rental places because the way people come and go, they need places to store the equipment from time to time. And so anyway, my point is there's always opportunity with land. Owning land, there's always somebody who needs it. And out in that area where you're talking about, man, that's a very untapped area. Sorry, I was just thinking because I've been looking out in that area too, because it's completely untapped, but it's growing. Utah is growing more than most states, and so is Wyoming. So anyway, any final thoughts here as we kind of wrap up today?
No, I appreciate you, Jason. Oh man, I love what you're doing with Landman too. That's coming back here soon. You got me into that and we've been loving that. And anyway, so
You
I'd
want to
love
know a funny story on that? I just spoke at the Eastern Kansas Oil and Gas Association on how Hollywood has changed, portraying the oil and gas industry from the hero that saved the community, the rags to riches story, to where Dallas, and all of a sudden now you got this evil tycoon to where Al Gore and Greta Thunberg, they're the villains of the planet. So I kind of showed that story being told over the last 50 to 60 years. And we end with Landman has a real good opportunity now to create a new narrative and kind of control that. And Warren Martin, who I do the Landman reviews with, he was he's with Kansas Strong, and he was at the Kansas State Fair, and he was talking to some gal from some other city in Kansas away, and they were talking about Landman because it's now okay to talk about publicly with people through Landman. And she said that she watches this guy do reviews and she loves it. And she pulled it up on YouTube and it was Warren and me. So she was telling Warren how much she loves the reviews that he does, and she didn't even know it was him. So I thought that
Wow.
was kind of cool that more people are watching it than we can ever see, and that's the value of YouTube. Do you put your stuff online? Do you do anything online at all?
Oh yeah, I mean we do. So we're actually just launching. We've been recording podcasts for a while on.
Oh,
You
okay.
kind of say rags. So Rigs to Riches is my podcast. So we have that one on our YouTube channel. We're releasing coming in October. So we're going to be releasing this week because October 1st is tomorrow. So we'll have that, and then but I just share a ton of like in addition to my podcast, I just share a lot of the education stuff I do. I lead a Friday Zoom every Friday where I actually it's called Problems to Profits. It's part of the sub two community. But just an example of like I'm always I always want to help more people do more deals and I just found that here's what I do, Jason. It's like I just found that even when I do the summit, I try to capture as much as I can because if I can give me somebody a little bite-sized video to get them interested, to get them to like actually maybe come show up in Houston for the summit, like that's the best way to get people to get them a taste and get them a part of it and take some action.
Casey Gregerson is his name. He's got the Revive Summit coming up. And what's the name of your company? Do you have a company name with the whole thing or what?
Yeah, so my companies are I have WYO Houses. That's my direct to seller company. That's where Wyoming's #1 home buyer. And then I have Bighorn Capital is my other big one. That's our that's the company that I raise capital through.
Bighorn Capital. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that and look forward to having you on again.
You bet. Thanks, Jason.